Welcome back to the Woman in Between podcast. I am just so incredibly happy that you are here again for another solo episode. And if you have not done so yet and you want to be included on all of the new episodes, all of the latest and greatest conversations, you need to hit that subscribe button. Follow us on YouTube. We're also on Instagram, TikTok. We want to see you. I want to hear from you. I want to build community with you. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you always know when the new episodes are coming out. So like I said, I am excited to do another solo episode, and we're actually jumping right back into the Working Mama series, which I honestly feel like this time of year is the best time. We're going into the second quarter. People are starting to look for jobs, and you guys, even though the economy right now, yes, we're in an impending or probably already in a recession, inflation is rising, but the job market is still actually doing pretty well. According to NPR. I haven't looked at the latest unemployment rate, but so far we're seeing tons of new jobs. And I feel like, as somebody being in the talent acquisition space, when you start to see more talent acquisition, recruiting roles, that's how you typically know a company is gearing up for some hiring. So that is always a good sign. But obviously, I started this series because as single moms, our career choices are almost entirely dependent on our kids' schedule. And for some of us, we might not have full time support. We might not have part time support. We might not have support at all. So, for a lot of us mothers, when we're thinking about the roles that we want to take and the careers that we want to have, we're having to think about how flexible is this job going to be with me and my kids? I feel like I just had a conversation with one of my friends tonight where we were talking about, we choose our job solely on, are we going to be able to do our work at a swim practice, at a baseball field? We need that flexibility. And so, my goal from this series is that everyone leaves here feeling empowered to find an opportunity that works for you. I think the biggest hurdle to getting in this job market and claiming what is yours is that there's so many people around you probably that are telling you that what you want is not realistic. And I am here to tell you, as somebody that has stood here vouching for remote work, dependent care, flexible spending accounts, professional development, I have asked for it all and I have received that tenfold. I want to be very clear that our mindset and how we enter into this job set is so important. And I'm also going to leave this little tidbit, and which is real G's move in silence like lasagna. So, ma'am, you might be drafting this master plan of how you're going to find a new opportunity. It doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be shared. So, I'll let you use your own discernment with that. But in the effort of talking about the job search process, I really feel like I could spend all of my time talking to you about what to put on your resume and how to beat the ATS, but I'm not going to play in your face like that. And speaking of applicant tracking systems, for those of you that are waiting for me to drop the cheat code on what keywords you need to put in your resume so the ATS can pick up on it, I'm here to tell you that the source of that was not true. Most recruiters are actually looking through resumes. I wish there was a robot to do my job, but there's not. So I'm going to save you and hopefully save you hundreds of dollars for having somebody rewrite your resume so that they can put keywords that are going to trigger an ATS. So there's just my tidbit. And from what I've seen in the industry, that's all that I have for you. But what I really wanted to spend some time on was what I feel like has been my bread and butter in finding an opportunity, whether it is I was passively looking or I was actively looking, like we talked about last week, right? If you have just been laid off, let go, and you are not employed right now, and that was not a part of the plan, you are actively searching right now. If you have a few months before you feel like you need to get out of there and you can kind of coast, you are passively searching right now. But mama, you have to find an opportunity that's going to actually work for you. And so, with my years of experience in recruiting, 10 years in this game, one of the first places that I start off with is, what is your network? And in this industry where your network is your net worth, it is critical. Now, I understand we're all in different places, talking about our career journey. We're not always going to be in the same place. And what works for me is not necessarily going to work for you. I have been in the corporate space now for 15 years. That's the space that I stay in. I have been back and forth between hourly and salary, but I have been in a professional setting since I have been working. So I want to make sure that I give that caveat so that you understand the scenario that I'm in or have been in as you're listening to this. But networking is always going to be something that I harp on because networking is part of the reason that I have found a lot of my jobs in the latter part of this decade. And it really speaks to the fact, and I had a leader tell me this before, it speaks to this quote that says, people won't remember what you do. People won't remember what you do, but they will remember how you feel. And in the last few roles that I have gotten, the people that I have reached out to for support, for connection, to answer questions, what always comes at the end of those conversations when I say, thank you for just taking the time, it always comes back to, I remember working with you and how much I enjoyed working with you. So this is, I'm just going to say this because it's my show. Be a joy to work with. That's always the start, because as much as I could tell you go and apply for 100 roles today, you could do that. Does it mean that you're going to hear back from one of them? No. And that's definitely a long game strategy. I'm assuming you want to find something quick, and you also want to find a company that you can trust from people that you can trust. So that's why I'm saying network, network. But here's the thing, your network is not going to support you if the only memories they had of you in that office is you were walking in and not speaking to anyone, you had a nasty attitude, you weren't helpful, you had integrity issues. I think we are at a point for most of you that I'm speaking to, you've been doing your skill set for years. You've got that down pat, but no one wants to work with someone that's unkind, unhelpful. So I'm saying that as humbly and gracefully as I know how. If that has been feedback that you have received, I'm sure some of it has probably been a little triggering, but I do want to say take heed on that, because I have seen many of people lose out on opportunities that were perfect for them because they did not present themselves the best way during their time working with them. So that's my TED talk on that. I'm going to get off my high horse, but be kind to people. And just always remember that you never know how the tables can turn. I have had to interview people that went to high school with me that treated me horribly. I have come into contact with former bosses that have treated me horribly. And you have to stand firm in knowing like how you want to show up in spaces, but also just be kind to people. It's not that difficult, especially in the workplace. We all put on a front. So it shouldn't be that hard. So I hate to harp on that, but having been in several toxic work environments, I just have to say that. So when it comes to networking, I always also like to look at it through the lens of being a mother. So for me, I have always really valued dating my relationships. Do I always do the best job? No. But I always knew in an environment that I walked in, I wanted to be of service, and I wanted I just simply wanted to treat people with respect, while hopefully climbing the corporate ladder. But that's a story for a whole nother day because I broke the ladder and burned it down. So when I think about networking, networking has looked so differently over my career, especially as a mother, and how I have engaged in networking. One of the key areas that I am highly active in that is an easy way for me to network is LinkedIn. Now, I want to say, like, as a recruiter, I live, breathe LinkedIn, right? That is my bread and butter. That's how I make connections. And when you're working in a certain field for so long, right, you just start to get to know certain people. And then you also, when you're also in the same type of location. So LinkedIn has been a social media platform that I have been on ever since I got into recruiting, even on the agency side. And I have seen people turn that into a lucrative platform or even just a lead generator for business. But it's also the main place to go when you need a role. But also, if you go onto LinkedIn and you look at jobs, it will show you who you're connected with. And so I think that LinkedIn, I'm not getting paid for this. I use LinkedIn in my day job, I use it personally. But if you are looking for new opportunities and you're looking for opportunities to network, you need to be on LinkedIn. Point blank, period. If you are looking for a job, you need to be on LinkedIn. That is really where I would recommend capitalizing on your brand because as a mama, you have to make the most out of your time. And so, how can you have certain elements of networking working for you in the background? If you already have a LinkedIn page, right, put that nice header up, put your profile picture up. I know you had a brand photo shoot, ma'am, because you have a side hustle that you took brand photo shoots last Saturday. You have them. Pull that brand photo out, and then you can just make you a little profile picture, go into ChatGPT, get you a nice little blurb. You probably already have that in there and copy paste and bing bang boom build a presence for yourself on the platforms that are going to give you what you want. And so if a job is what you want to be on those platforms, you want to be following those companies, you want to be making connections. And I harp on it so much because it's efficient. And as moms looking for another job, you are probably in a current job that you really don't like, that's probably burning you out so you don't have a ton of time, or you have run out of options because you've searched every job board. Either way, making a project out of creating your brand presence on LinkedIn is an efficient and effective time saving way to put yourself out there because it is an evergreen link essentially. And if you wanted to link your website, if you wanted to offer your services, right, that's where employers go. I know all the time I will cross reference a LinkedIn profile in a heartbeat. So I'm definitely going to say start there. You can also see like different types of events that are on there, and even making certain connections. I think it's just a great hub. Social media in general has been a really great resource of connection and networking. As many of you know, I found guests through those spaces. So if you're not on LinkedIn, I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you do. And as you know, I'm always talking about efficiency and effectiveness and how do we make the most out of our time? Because for most of us, we are not full time entrepreneurs. And then so we don't have a ton of time to devote to networking. And then the rest of us are probably introverts. So we don't really want to go out there even if we did have the time. So those are two pretty big, real challenges. What I have come to realize, just me knowing that I am the social butterfly that I am, and I would love to be at all of the things, but understanding like Jelisa, you can't be at two networking events and then you're at events for the kids and all of the next thing you know, you're just overwhelmed. And so what I really started doing was truly looking at the intention of the networking event. And now I am not here to ruffle any sort of feathers, but just going to a networking event for the sake of networking, you're not going to get what you want out of it. And so, whenever I found myself on the market last summer, I really tried to be intentional with how I was using my network and finding another job because I had already gotten to the point where I knew what I wanted and I had started slowly communicating that to people. If you are still trying to figure out what type of role works for you, whether it's remote, whether it's hybrid, whether shoot, it's in Texas or the state that you're living in, whatever it may have you, take the time to sit down and figure out what you want first before you start pursuing some of those networking activities. Because it's not fun when you do meet someone and they ask you what opportunities are you looking for and you don't know. That's not a good look. So we're not going to do that, mama. One of the things that I really look at whenever I am going to a networking event is one, what companies are sponsoring it, who is hosting it, and even the credibility of the host. And then I will look and determine, okay, is there going to be any hiring happening at this event? Sometimes at networking events, they will have recruiters and they will have kind of a cutoff area where you can take the time to talk to the recruiters. And that is an event that I would definitely go to. But I would definitely make sure when you're looking at these networking events, understanding who is hosting it and the company that they're associated with. If you're able to see other attendees, seeing who are they associated with, because it makes no sense for you to go to a networking for marketing if you're trying to find a job in IT. You just wasted your time and probably $35. Hopefully the hors d'oeuvres were good. So being very intentional about where you're going. And sometimes it can be very like micro focused. And so a really good example of a networking event that I've gone to, and I think it's called like Tech Black in Tech. I'll have to link it in the show notes. But I obviously, like, I'm not a software engineer. I am not a developer of any sort. I have done corporate recruiting, y- any form of recruiting. And there was a tech event for people of color here in the Dallas area that was doing very well. And I noticed that one of the recruiters that I was following was going to that event and was going to have a booth. I was on the market. I knew I needed a recruiting position. I also knew at this event there would be recruiters, and one of the recruiters was from a reputable company that I had been following. That's what I mean when I say intention. So, one, I went to that event by myself. I do highly encourage, if you can go by yourself, have the courage and do it. It's really not as scary as you think, because sometimes if you're going to these networking events with a friend, you might not want to talk to anyone else. So, one, I went by myself. Two, I memorized a LinkedIn photo of the person that I was looking for. And I made maybe one sidetrack conversation that really wasn't a sidetrack conversation, because me and this woman ended up being friends and we're friends to this day, just had dinner. But I had one conversation and I made a beeline to that booth. And I didn't start with small talk. I came in with, hi, I'm Jelesa, here's my 30-minute pitch, my 30-second pitch. And she noticed that right off the bat, and we had a conversation for about 30 minutes telling her what I was looking for, what her company offered. And so I left there with her contact info. I left there knowing what opportunities were currently available, what were coming up. And then after, I sent her a LinkedIn message and continued to do so on a cadence. What I'm trying to say is, if you're going, plan with intention, because when you're in a room with all those people, mind you, there were well over 200 people in that building, and it was crowded and it was overwhelming. And it would have been so easy for me to just go over to the bar, order something to drink, and just sit there the whole night. I probably would have ordered a espresso martini, but you know what I mean? That's so easy to happen. And I think when you go in without a plan, that's when you see those things start to happen. And then the next thing you know, you've left and all you've had was a cranberry vodka and did a raffle. You didn't leave there with anything that is going to benefit you. So always look at who are the companies sponsoring, who are the speakers, what companies are they associated with, are any of the attendees connected in a space that you need? And from there, you can determine, okay, I'm going to go to this event because the ROI makes sense. And then when you go to the event, you know exactly what you're asking for. Now, there's that part of the intentionality, right? And another tidbit that I'm going to add is, if there are certain companies that you know, like, I've always wanted to work for, right? Maybe you've always wanted to work for the Dallas Cowboys. Follow the Dallas Cowboys on LinkedIn. Follow the Dallas Cowboys on social media. Start connecting with people that are in spheres of that spaces, or they are on teams that you could potentially collaborate with. There's a gold mine there. And I think consistently having this opportunistic mindset is going to put you in a position to always advocate for yourself intentionally in the right spaces. So that is definitely my hope for you. And also being able to go in those spaces confident, because going to a networking event by yourself with people that you don't know, especially when the conversations are so odd starting off. On top of the fact, I think during the summer, so many people were looking for jobs. We were all networking for a job. Somebody make that make sense. So, the event can depend, but I think knowing who is attending is a really good starting point. And then I'm also going to say, please read the description. A curated DJ list, cocktails, and conversation. You need a little bit more than that, boo. You're going to need a little bit more than that. And I think there are definitely opportunities where that makes sense. But if you're actively searching, you don't necessarily have the bandwidth for that. If you're passively searching, go for it. I think we should all strive. Actually, let me pause that. I strive to have at least two intentional networking events that I'm going to. Now, many people know that follow me on my Jaybird Flu page. Every weekend, Jelesa is out. Whether the kids are with me or not, like we're rolling together or I'm riding solo. So I have to be really mindful of how many events I'm going to. And this year, I've really only gone to maybe one or two. And because I know I'm only going to be at one to two events in person, I really try to capitalize on those conversations, whether it is, focused on my full time work, whether it's focused on the podcast, understanding that building relationships is critical to building trust. And if people can't trust you, they're not going to bring you on to their company. So that's a key part. And you can also, let's say, for example, you want to work for Southwest Airlines. You If you wanted to go and start adding some of their recruiters, reaching out, just make sure you come with a specific question on, I wanted to learn more about the culture. I want to learn more about professional development and the programs that you have so you can get those quick answers, and really understand the landscape of the role, and even looking at the companies that are currently listed on the Chamber of Commerce sites or your location specific magazine sites that are saying like, hey, these companies are hiring and we're interested in new candidates. So I do want to say there is power in networking. And I think when you're going to these events, we talk about ROI, but I'll be honest, and Denzel said this perfectly when he was like, I'm leaving here with something. And that is always what I think about is I will always at least have someone identify that I know I need to speak with. And if I don't know that there's someone there that I need to speak with, I'm listening in on conversation and I'm trying to find a connection point. And that's why trailing this all the way back to mindset is critical, because you're not going to be able to notice those gaps of opportunity if you're up here still listening to Mary Sue and all them who are telling you that you're not going to get what you want because what you want is too much. Mentally, you have to fully own the fact that you can name what you want and you can go after what you want and you can receive it. And so that's why so much of this is the mental piece, because you're networking with human beings. We are all human. We are all flawed. We all deserve grace. And so when you're going into these spaces, right, you might not receive the same type of energy, and that's okay. That's why I continue to stress there is a strategic approach to networking and making sure that you are connecting with the people that you need to and that you are receiving the resources that you need to. And as a firm believer that single mothers need resources and they need community, I implore you at your next networking event, find one person before that event that you know for sure you want to connect with. And here's where it really challenges you, right? Because that guest list is ever moving, but that speaker list isn't. And I think that there is something profound about going all the way to the top. You want to speak to the CEO, you want to speak to the speaker, you want to speak to the host, because you have talent. And those are the people that are going to get you into the rooms, even the recruiters, right? We can at least put you into that room, and then we're hoping that your skill set and your talent can do the rest. But when you're going to these events, you deserve to leave with something, and you're not going to leave with anything if you're too busy worried about what's up here, what people told you you weren't going to be able to find, what people told you that you couldn't do or shouldn't do. And I think for a lot of us single mothers, we feel like, especially the ones on this podcast, I know that we are ambitious and multifaceted. And so to feel limited in our work, in our career, is detrimental. And so that's why I say the first place is starting off with the mind and getting to a place where you know that you are more than deserving of the opportunities that you dream of, being able to pick events that are actually going to serve you, that are actually going to grow you and get you somewhere. So that way you can make sure that you leave with something yourself. So hopefully I was able to put this in a concise enough package and that it has helped someone. And if you're not sure where you are in your job search journey, more specifically what season of life you're in, I'm going to encourage you to click over and watch this and take the Seasons of Life quiz. You could be in a season of restoration, of reflection, of cultivation, renewal, and that really can dictate how you find your next job or even the type of job that you find, right? If you're in a season of cultivation, You might simply just be trying to cultivate a promotion. That might be your work this year. But if you're in a season of renewal, you might be finding a new role this year. So I always say help yourself. Help yourself and identify the season that you are in. I want to hear about the season that you're in. Please drop them in the comments. And I am incredibly grateful for anyone that chooses to open this space into their home. So thank you so much for allowing me to share with you. This has been another amazing time with you guys. And until next Friday, stay light.